Oh boy, this ain't fit. What am I supposed to do? Ciao guys, in this video I show you how to apply the first planking on a wooden model ship with a curved bow. So if you're building a ship like the Fifie or a General Clipper or other ship with a straight bow, I suggest you to watch also my other video on the first planking. You can find the link below the like button. I will try to make just one layer of planking, but as you can see the planks are not very thick, so there might be some risk of not achieving a good result. The model might also be designed with 2 layers of planks, so in case the first planking is coming out nicely, I might think of making some adjustments. But this is tomorrow's problem. In any case, even if you are planning to make 2 layers, I recommend making a good first layer of planking, so that will be easier in later stages of construction. After a quick check on the alignment of the 2 bulwarks, I proceed with gluing them. The concern I mentioned before is especially on those 2 pieces. The bulwarks are 1 mm thick, while the strips for the planks of the first planking are 1.5 mm. The second planking strips are just 0.5 mm. So if we imagine to sand down around 0.5 mm dowel after the first covering, everything should be perfect in theory. Also, the second planking wooden strip are smaller in width and have a slightly different color, so this makes things even more complex. So you understand why I don't want to work on the second layer this time. In a nutshell, once the first layer of the hull is complete, I might consider removing the plywood bulwarks so that I do not have problems with plank's thickness. As for any other kit, I measure all the bulkheads to understand how many planks should fit in each of them. This is a step you might already know from the Fifie first planking video uploaded last year. As the hull of the Bounty is far more curved than the Fifie, I divide the hull into 3 sections to simulate battens of real vessels. This is not a compulsory step, but it's useful on such complex hull. Now that we have divided each bulkhead into 3 sections, we can start gluing the black thread. Once we know how many wooden strips can fit in the first section of the master bulkhead, which is the bulkhead with the biggest perimeter, we can assess the width of the strip on each bulkhead. Now we've got 2 choices. We can either start measuring each section with the template we have from the previous plank, or we can use the calculations we made earlier. Both systems are fine. Maybe the template can be useful when we want to make things a bit faster. I know that in my master bulkhead I can fit a bit more than 6 planks of 6 mm each, so I count 6 spaces between the radiating lines. Those will be around 6 mm for the master bulkhead, of course, but they're going to be smaller as we move towards stern or bow. Using a black thread helps me visualize the smooth run much more easily. I start from the master bulkhead and proceed to the next ones. In stern and bow, the buttons might require some manual adjustments. The other useful thing of using a thread is that you can work on a smaller section instead of the whole hull, so that you can understand more easily and adjust the plank's dimension as you go. You can mark the distance from the previous strake to the thread of the planking band that you're working on. Then you can place this strip on a piece of paper with equally spaced radiating lines, and you get how many planks go in each section and the size of each of them. The only drawback here, I think, is that you might get small measurement errors. Not a big deal if you use the thread just to visualize the hull. You can understand the size of each stripe also by calculating how many strips go in the master bulkhead, 6 in my case, and then you can divide the length of each bulkhead by this number. The black thread also helps me understand the size of the planks that touch the cut water. At this point, I collect data again in order to check if I have to adjust the width of the wooden strips. I show you here the two data collection I made. The first one is the one you saw at the beginning of this video, and the second one below is the one I just made. Here I want to show you that there is a slight change in bulkhead 2 and bulkhead 11. The width just increased slightly, meaning that I tapered the wooden strip a bit more than I should have. It is a very small variance at this point, but I suggest repeating the data collection in 4 or 5 planks. With this third plank over here, we are reaching a point where we can no longer use the straight planks from the kit. It won't be possible anymore, and now I'm going to explain to you why that is. If we trace the shape of the previous plank on a piece of paper, we can immediately see in 2Ds that the plank is not straight. It creates a particular curve which we are not respecting if we are using a straight plank. We are forcing it. And that's fine until it works. For this third plank I'm going to force it so that I will show you the point where you can't do that anymore. And that is going to be clearer in a minute. In the video right now I'm taking the width dimension of the plank on each point. The points here are the bulkheads. Of course, the more points you have, the better it is. That's why this phase can be more precise in arsenal model building, because you have many more frames. When buying a kit, in fact, the numbers of bulkheads at bow and stern can be synonyms of high quality. So here I want you to understand one thing, that the point is that our plank here is straight. We will never achieve this shape. This should be, even if I try to, let's say, shape it this way, I will never achieve this exact shape here. So this is a huge problem because you cannot do it with such a small sized plank. We could say, okay, I cannot cut it that way, but I can certainly try to reduce this problem. If we follow the line, we see that, look where it goes somewhere like up here. It's not that good. So we need to understand where we should start. tapering this plank, right? How can we understand that? Well, it's easy. The point where we have the bigger space is here. So here's the point where we need to start tapering the plank. And we have to do it until this point that we marked before. So let's do it. So let's try this again. So more or less it fits the way it is supposed to, with a bit of force, of course, because as we understood, this plank shouldn't be the shape it is now. It is straight. It shouldn't be straight, right? For bending the planks, I use the Amati bender, which I highly recommend you to use if you're planning to work on one layer of planks only. This way you won't risk damaging the wooden strips. You can find the product in the link below the like button. With the fourth plank coming down from the bulwark, it's all a complete different story. We can no longer force the plank to fit. You can notice that by the gap between the bottom part of the plank and the bulkhead. This gap is going to increase plank by plank as you go down. It is crucial that when you notice this gap, you understand you need to change methodology. You can't force the plank like we did for the third plank. We need to cut a plank to shape. This is true for all ship that have such a bow, so you will face this sooner or later than the fourth plank. See how different these planks are from the standard straight ones? Usually the planks you lay on the hull won't be enough to cover the stern. If you don't force the planks that finish at the stern, you will notice a gap. This gap will be filled with the steelers. Steelers can have various designs depending on the ship model you're building. For the sake of this video, I will be showing you the two most common ones. Now that you have all the elements for correctly completing the hull, you can sand it down. You can sand it out manually or with a mouse sander. Since the hull shape came out pretty good, I decided to remove the plywood bulwarks and to cover this part with planks. Doing this will require me to add also rails and stanchions. So that's all for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. I know that most of you guys that watch my videos have not subscribed to the channel. It is very important that if you like what I do and if you want to support me, you subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's a great support to me for continuing making this content. Thank you so much. Stay tuned and I will see you in the next video.